Okay, so right now I have the developer docs open in yT. These are the dev docs, so this is like not the ones that are on 4.0, but they're very, very similar. I think they should be almost the same. And so we have a lot of guidelines for developing in yT. I'll put these in the Slack as well. So if you want, you can kind of peruse them. We have tons and tons of tips. So right now you are already set up with being involved in the yT Slack. We told you to join the CCA workshop, and by default, you are invited to a couple of channels when you join the yT Slack workspace. For example, there's the help channel, which I think you are automatically enrolled in, and then there's general, but we also have a front ends channel for those of you that are thinking about writing front ends. This is a good place to ask questions about that. We also have a development channel where you'll see people talking about development questions in yT. We also have user mailing lists and developer mailing lists, which are listed in this communications channel right here. So yeah, we have yT users and yT dev. If you're using yT and you have any questions, feel free to send out a question to the yT users mailing list. You'll get an answer from somebody pretty quickly, usually.
I've got a question.
Yep.
It says there are 5 main communication channels and 4 bullets.
Yeah, so this is a great point, Mike. I think probably what happened here, because so we do have an IRC channel, but it is not very active. So maybe we should remove the IRC channel. Matt, what do you think? Yeah, okay. So this is great. Now we see that there's, and okay, so I'm gonna also say, before we dive too deep into this, you know, yT is continually under development, and there are plenty of small mistakes or small errors or misleading things in our documentation. There's also things that are counterintuitive as a user that can happen when you're going through yT, and all of these are things that we would welcome feedback on, including your contributions. And so now actually we have a perfect simple doc fix that we can kind of walk through together and submit as a pull request today. That's going to be the last thing we're going to do. First, I'm going to show you what it looks like to review a pull request. So pull request is when somebody makes a change to their copy of the yT source code, and then they submit it for review to the upstream repository, which is the yT project yT source code. And so they're requesting that we pull their changes into the project. So this is what this looks like. So if I go, oh, I have the yT project open already. Okay, so this is what the yT project repository looks like. It is located here at github.com/yT project yT. And so we have a couple of tabs along the top. There's issues, pull requests, there's some projects and other things here. So, and then here's all of the source code and documentation and things like that. So all the source code for yT lives in the yT folder. And so for those of you, for example, working on front ends, you'd want to be looking in this front ends folder. And so you can explore, actually, without even downloading the source code to your computer, you can explore the source code on GitHub if you would like to. And then all of the documentation, specifically the narrative docs, we have all functions have something called a doc string after them, and you saw all of us kind of querying the doc string to see exactly what order we should be passing in arguments and keyword arguments in Jupyter by doing a question mark after the function, and that would print some documentation on what that function did. That's called a doc string. And a doc string, let's see here. Is this big enough, or is it?
That's good.
That's good? Okay, now let me make this smaller, so. Okay, so if I go, let's see here. okay. So if I want to go to like, let's see here. I just want to show you what a doc string looks like in the source code, so you can kind of see what that would look like if you wanted to update a doc string somewhere.
You can just search on def.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks, Mike. I might not be in a good thing because this might be too high.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is actually something, yeah, so a doc string is generally right after the def of a function. So this particular function is sanitized coordinate system. The way that this function is written in particular with the underscore ahead of it means that you're probably not going to be interacting with it that much as a user. And so like you're not going to like query this in Jupyter Lab probably, but you could. But a doc string generally has this triple quote, and this is an extended comment. So Python has two different types of comments that you can put. You can do these multi-line comments, which are the triple quotes, or you can do a pound sign, and that can be an inline comment. And so if you're doing something where you're like writing a function, you're like, I'm not sure if this works, but I just want to leave this note here for now, you would do that with pound. But doc string looks like this. We have a couple, so the first few lines say a summary of what the function is going to be doing. And then there's going to be this parameters line. And sometimes there's other things, other definitions, and I'll show you in the YT docs what you can put in there. And then we have what the argument is that you're passing, and the key that's assigned to. And so, so for example, this particular function is looking for a coordinate in an array like format. And so that means you need to pass it as a NumPy array or as some type of array, maybe a unit array or something like that. And then also you can have multiple options that are passed to an argument. And so, you know, we saw this a little bit yesterday where you could pass coordinates to, or yesterday and Monday, where you can pass coordinates to the functions where we're doing data selections, but you could also pass a string of min or max that automatically finds the coordinates where you're looking. So anyway, okay, so this is what a doc string looks like. We have in our developing docs we have a style guide that I encourage all of you to look at if you're interested in developing. And so we have a coding style guide. We kind of talk about some of the automatic formatters that check style. But also we have a section on doc strings that say kind of the format that we look for related to doc strings. And so part of the reason, so I mentioned that there's like this parameters sort of header at the beginning, and then there's a return sort of header. This is because our we're using this formatting from that is going to be rendered nicely using Sphinx restructured text. And so if we have this sort of format, it's going to look nice when we print it out in our documentation. Anyway, so I highly encourage all of you to kind of browse these developer docs. Again, there's probably going to be inconsistencies in places, and feel free to help fix those if that interests you. Okay, so now we're in the YT source code. We can look around. So let's say you could contribute something to YT and you submit this pull request. And I just kind of described what a pull request was before. Now, yesterday, Mike submitted a pull request that says, oh, this is related to what Stephanie commented in her in her tutorial that, oh, the height in disk is kind of confusing. I think it should be the full height. It was not clear to me that it's from the midplane of the disk. And so while she was doing her tutorial, Mike was like, I'm gonna fix this the docks on the disk, so it makes it really clear that the region is from the midplane as opposed to the full height of the disk. Okay, so there's a couple things. So there's a PR summary. So this is something we look for, that we want you to kind of explain what the general purpose of this pull request is. So you kind of want a pull request that's thematic. The smaller the pull request, the faster it's probably going to get merged and the easier it is to review from the project sort of perspective. But don't let that stop you from submitting some cool, larger, more complex new features. And then there's a PR checklist here. And so we have 3 different things that we kind of look for. There's the code passes the Flake-8 checker, which is checking that there's some formatting based on the PEP8 style guidelines. And so we actually have a bot that checks that. And although I don't know if it's on the 4.0 branch, so maybe actually, I don't think it's on the 4.0 branch, but yeah, I don't think it's on here. Anyway, and then there's new features are documented with doc strings and narrative docs. So I mentioned just before, I kind of jumped ahead on this, I'm sorry. So I just showed you what a doc string looks like. All of the contents that live in the doc folder on the yT project. So if I go back, all the documentation that lives in this doc folder is what is rendered here on the yT project /docs or doc and then web page. And so this is where all of these more extended documentation is. So this is where all of these developer guidelines are. This is where there's some notebooks and the cookbook and all of that. All of that lives inside this doc folder. And these are what we are referring to as the narrative docs. And so if you add a new feature or a new function, we want you to both document it in the doc string. So if somebody is querying it in something like JupyterLab or an IPython terminal, they can see what the doc string of that function is. But also narrative docs are great because a new learner to yT can go through and browse through the cookbook and see how that's used in line with the rest of yT's functionality. And so, you know, features, if relevant, you want to add documentation to both the doc string and the narrative docs. Okay, so that's something here that we say new features are documented, and then adds a test for any bugs fixed, and adds a test for new features. So in the case of Mike's, and so a test, we have a testing framework. There's a little bit more on that in the documentation. I'm not going to dive too deep into that right now. But if you do fix a bug, ideally, it's good to submit the pull request with a test to try and make sure that that bug doesn't pop up again. But we're pretty lenient on this rule in general. So, you know, if it's just a small thing, you maybe don't need to do a bug fix. In the case of Mike's, there's no new features, so this particular point is not necessary. And also, he's doing a documentation pull request, so there's no test for any bugs fixed or anything like that. So these last 2 points aren't exactly relevant to this particular PR. And also, because it's a documentation pull request, there's no code, and so it's not going to go through a Flake-8 check anyway. Okay, so now for me as a reviewer, I can look at what the code looks like when that's been changed. So I can see a couple of different things here. So I clicked again from the conversation, which is the main view of the pull request, and I can click on files changed and look and see what has changed in the yT source that is submitted. So it looks like he's changing the narrative documentation. I can see he's in the doc folder. It's doc source analyzing objects.rst. So that file I could navigate to in my shell as well. And we can do that in a little bit. And okay, so I'm kind of looking through here and I can see, so on the left-hand side, and depending on who's reviewing this, this might look a little bit different for you. Like you might just see the total changes. I have it side by side because I think I like that view. On the left-hand side is what the old docs look like, and on the right-hand side is what the new changes do. And so I can see Mike has added 2 lines, and it said, note, height is the distance from the midplane to the top or the bottom of the cylinder. So now this documentation is very explicit. I can also pop up and I can see like in context if I wasn't exactly sure what was happening. So like I can see he's adding this to the disc/cylinder part of the documentation. And yeah, this looks pretty good. I also, because I now know where this folder is, I see it's in analyzing and objects. I could, in the YT thing here, I can say docs dev. And then you were in objects, that's right. Sorry, this like pop down of the okay, so I can actually look at what the current documentation, the dev docs look like if I wanted to, just to make sure that there's not some other place as a reviewer that I can see that this is here. So maybe I'm gonna look and see the cylinder. Okay, so this is what the current docs look like. I can see that it's a disk class, this is the usage, and then it just, you know, this simple line, cylinder defined by a point at the center. And so, yeah, it's really not clear from this part of the docs what the height is referring to. And so now I can see that what Mike's pull request is going to do is add this note right after the end of that sentence saying this. So I think this looks pretty good. But, you know, I can also ask for, I can request changes from Mike if I want to. So I can click this review changes. And I can comment, I can approve, or I can request changes from him. So I don't know, is there anything any of you think would improve this documentation? Maybe we could ask Mike to add another sentence here or something like that.
Yeah, he should say, so actually the total height of the cylinder is twice what you enter.
Ooh, oh, okay, yes, be very, very explicit. Okay.
Totally.
Yeah, do you think you could actually, could you make it well, actually?
Oh, yes. I would like to yes and you, Matt, but I'm gonna say we should not add well actually. So I'm gonna actually request changes from Mike here, and I'm gonna say I'm not gonna say I think, I'm gonna say I agree that okay, so I added a little thing in here, and I'm gonna submit my review, and I'm gonna request changes from Mike now. Okay. And then what GitHub does is it pops me right back to the discussion page after I do this, so I can see the conversation. And so I said, I request changes from Mike, and I'm saying, yeah, can you do these things? Also, I want to point out to you that we are working on updating and fixing some of our test infrastructure. So these checks down here in the pull request tell us whether the pull request is ready to merge. And ideally, there should be all green check marks based on all of these different checks. But it's saying that the AppVeyor build is failing on Mike's. I know for sure that his change is not making the AppVeyor build fail, because AppVeyor doesn't build our documentation, and this is only changing the documentation. So I know that his change didn't do this. So in the case of Mike's pull request, when this pull request is good for merging, I am okay to merge this, even though this doesn't have a green check mark on the testing. So if you do decide to contribute, please don't worry too much if the tests don't all pass. The developers of the project will kind of get back to you and ask you to fix tests if we notice that it's for sure caused by your pull request. And you can also click in the details section. So now Mike just submitted updated his PR. And if I click on this commit message, the address PR review, I can actually see the specific change that he just pushed, as opposed to all of the changes in this full pull request. So I can see, oh, okay, so he added, i.e. height is half that of the cylinder object that's created. Okay, so now I'm satisfied. I'm feeling much better about this pull request. I think it's looking great. So I'm gonna go back, and I can see, okay, he's done this change. This yellow thing means that the checks are in progress right now. So now our continuous integration, both AppVeyor and Travis are going to be rerunning their tests to see that the tests pass on this pull request. Again, because this is a documentation pull request, yeah.
Why are there two CI systems? Why is there AppVeyor and Travis?
Yeah, so one runs our Mac OS X and Linux distributions, and the other runs Windows.
Okay.
So we have coverage on all platforms. So Travis does all of the Linux, Unix system stuff, and then AppVeyor does all our Windows builds. However, there are services that do all of them. So, our testing is constantly being improved. We're also in the middle of updating our test infrastructure. So Jared Coughlin, another person who works at Illinois, just is redoing our infrastructure to use PyTest rather than Node. So, and Casper is updating our, on master we have, so this is a pull request submitted to the YT 4.0 branch, which hopefully will be our newer development version of YT going forward. But right now we also have a master branch, which is the general development branch that people have been using. But that is gonna, when that's released, it will be YT 3.6. And eventually we'll merge them together and we'll only have one development version. And so Casper is updating our other CI infrastructure, Jenkins, which builds the documentation and runs all of our answer tests on to use a newer version of Python, to use Python 3.8. Anyway, that's getting a little deep into the testing infrastructure, I'm sorry. Okay, so we can see Mike updated this, and I can see that the CI services are running all the tests. If I go back up though, I can see that this particular commit failed the CI, and we saw that before, that the AppVeyor thing failed. And I can click actually on the X, and I can see what exactly failed on that if I want to. So I can see, oh, AppVeyor failed on this, and I can click details and I can see why. And so if you're contributing back to YT and you see the tests are failing on your pull request, you can click this X and you can see why the tests are failing. And so I can go down and I can see, let's see here. Okay, so I definitely know that Mike did not submit anything that changed the test splat infrastructure for sure. But you can also go check this and you can see if, for example, you add a new plot callback to something to like, maybe you want to make a new annotation that we don't have yet. Then there might be some test failures in the test annotations section. And so you going and checking the tests and seeing why they're failing is a really good way to update your pull request if you need to without waiting for somebody to get back to you for review. Okay, but we definitely know Mike's is good. I'm feeling really good about it. Now also we have a governance. We called it, did we call it YT governance, Matt, or did we call it YT governance? Oh, it's notes, yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, it's just governance on the github.io.
Yeah, here we go. So I'm gonna post this here. So the governance generally says like how we make decisions. It's our documented, like, and we tried to make it a separate sort of standalone thing outside of the general YT docs. So you can really see it, the governance for itself. And so this is where we kind of talk about the project guidelines, what roles we see in the community when meetings are happening. So every Friday we have a triage meeting where we go through open issues and we triage them. I'm going to show you triaging in a second. And we review pull requests and ask for changes and things like that. And so in this particular page, the voting items, we described the decision-making process to make big changes in YT, but we also have things for other changes. So this is Mike's change is a minor documentation change. And so we say, so this is where we also say like how many approvals you need to merge a pull request. So depending on how big your contribution is, you may need a different number of approvers to approve the pull request. So this minor documentation change requires review from a project member and no rejecting reviews. We don't usually have people weigh in with a rejecting review. I don't think I've ever seen that on my time working on YT. So I don't think that's something you really need to worry about if you're contributing to YT. Although I guess I did just reject Matt's well actually suggestion. So that was maybe a rejecting review, but sorry, Matt.
It was well-deserved.
But so then there's also code changes and major documentation changes. And these generally require at least 2 approving reviews by project members, and then it can be merged. And so sometimes if you submit a pull request and you change a function or something like that, somebody might get to you really quickly with a review and it might take a little bit longer for that second person. And that's okay. It all depends. This is a volunteer project. And the more people we have contributing to the project, the stronger it's going to be. Like, we definitely want you there. And if you contribute after a certain number of contributions, you can become a project member and you can be somebody who helps merge and reviews pull requests as well. But also as a non-project member, you can review pull requests. You just don't have merge rights. So I can show what that looks like in an incognito tab, I suppose, because I'm not signed in there. Yeah, so I can still look. I'm not signed in with my GitHub or anything, so you actually would have a little more options than me not signed in at all, but you can still see what changes are, and you can still submit a review. You just won't be able to, you won't have this button like the
I don't know if you can submit a
button.
review.
You could submit a review as a non-project member, I think.
But if you're not logged in.
Oh yeah. If you're not logged in, you can't submit a review. You have to be logged in because it has to be attributed to your GitHub profile. But yeah, sorry, I realized this after I opened the incognito tab and realized I couldn't submit anything. So you can submit something as a non-project member, but after a certain number of contributions, you can become a project member, and then you will have like this merge pull request button. Or if you want, you could close the pull request. But closing just means you're saying this is not ever going to be merged, or like or there's like some other change that already fixed this, so we don't need to merge your commits. So I'm not going to do that on Mike's because I think this is really good. Generally, we wait for the CI to finish, but because this is a documentation one, I'm going to merge it now because I think it's looking good. But I still have the request changes, so I'm going to review a second time. I'm going to say, this looks great. I also like to add emojis. Anybody have an emoji they want to add to this? First place medal. We'll do that one. Okay. Okay, great. So now I've approved the changes, and you can see the reviewers. I am an approving reviewer on this pull request. And since it's a documentation one, that means it can be merged. So I'm going to merge this pull request. And then GitHub will ask me like what I want the merge to look like. I'm just going to say confirm because I think the defaults look good enough. Okay, so now GitHub is updated and has this little purple icon that has two sort of split going together. This is the two different commit histories merging into one branch. So that's what's happening here. And so we can see, oh, I've merged this commit into the YT project YT 4.0 branch. So hooray, Mike, your pull request was merged. Woo! And if I want, I can go back to the code. And if I go to the YT 4.0 branch, I can see what the most recent commit is. And I can see that the most recent commit is I made this commit and I merged pull request 2503, which is the one we were just reviewing from this, from Mike's profile and the branch disk.fix. Okay, so that's what it looks like to review and merge a pull request. And this is generally the process we follow. You can kind of see then what this looks like, but please feel free to join our triage meetings on Fridays. We would love to have you, and you can see a little bit more with other types of pull requests what this looks like. So now I'm going to look at the issues. So this was the pull request. You've seen what it looks like to review and merge a pull request. Issues are where if you find a problem or you think that there's a way that we can improve YT, you can give feedback on GitHub. An issue can be, I think this documentation is unclear. It can be, I found a bug. It can be, I think that this function is inconsistent with other functions that are similar to it in YT. It can really be whatever you feel like. But there's also, you know, a whole list of issues. And so it says 211. Don't let this be intimidating at all. There's some are quite old. We try to get around to resolving new issues as fast as we can. So here's all of the issues. We can see that there's all these tags on them, and this helps us filter by similar issues. So you can see, you can go back and search through issues to see if somebody else has already submitted the issue that you have. So maybe you think like, oh, this plot callback isn't helpful. Then, you know, and that plot callback is specifically for slice plot, then you know that's going to be a Viz 2D. You can click on that and it'll filter all of the Viz 2D issues that are open. You can also, on this filter on the top, you could get rid of this part, and then you can see all of the issues that existed, including the closed ones. You can see which ones are opened or closed based on these little icons on the left. So the green means that they're still open issues. That means they haven't been resolved yet. And then the red here means that they've been resolved in some way. So either a pull request has been submitted to fix it, or maybe the issue is something that it has been a design decision in YT. And so, you know, the issue is responded to, but there's not going to be another resolution. So for example, this issue, we support something called CM Ocean color maps, which are a set of color maps that were developed originally for oceanography. They're very cool though, I recommend you check them out. And we use the same matplotlib trend, which is if you want to reverse the color map, you use this _R. And so this person is saying, oh, if I'm using a CM Ocean color map, I can't use the R to reverse the color map. So I see this issue. And then there's a code for reproduction. And then they say like what's happening and what they expect. And so we can see in this particular issue, it was resolved by a pull request. So you can link pull requests to issues. So this particular pull request is correctly register the reverse version of color maps, and we can see it was merged. We just talked about this merge icon. And then we closed out the issue because the issue was resolved. So we can also see that if I go back to issues, Matt submitted an issue yesterday saying this wrapper for particle unions should be created. The wrapper then, if you are looking at a particle union, it'll say basically what union of particles, what union objects were used to create it. And so there's a triage label because this hasn't been triaged yet. In our triage meetings, what we do is we go through these labels. You saw Matt doing this during his tutorial on Monday, I think, or yesterday. I don't know.
I think it was yesterday.
It was yesterday? Okay. So you saw him going through this, but we can also do this right now. So we have particles. So this is definitely part of the demeshing because this is like particle, a specific feature for the particle part of YT. And let's see here. This is definitely an enhancement. It's making this part, it's making this a little bit clearer, the particle unions. So I would describe that as an enhancement. And we can also say, I don't know if I would add any more. Does anybody have any other labels they want to add to this that they think would be useful? So that we have a ton of labels also. And I want to say that like this, you can't, I don't know if you create a pull request issue, if you can file it, or if it's only people with merge rights that can file labels to things. But generally we have these things. Also, if you want to contribute to YT, you can filter by this new contributor friendly label. And so this is an issue we found that we're like, oh, this could be a fix that like is very approachable to somebody new in the project. Like it's not deep in YT internals, ideally. So that's something that could be nice. Yeah, I'm gonna just leave this for now since I don't have any additions here. So I've added these two labels, and then we have this bot, this triage new issues bot that is removing the original triage label. Okay, so that's what issues look like. If I want, I can also create a new issue. So if you want to create an issue in YT, you can click this new issue button. And then we have a template for issues. So that's what's happening here. Depending on what project you go to, this might be empty. But so these things here are comments. And so they're not going to show up in the rendering if I preview it. You won't see anything. It just looks like this. So you don't see any of those comments, but this helps like reveal to you like what the purpose of each section is. And so I think an issue that Stephanie pointed out yesterday, although I didn't dive into this yet, but you said, Stephanie, that for the phase plots, or was it maybe any type of plot? If you had 8 orders of magnitude or fewer, it didn't show the scale?
No, so it's actually 8 orders of magnitude or more. Sorry, I wasn't very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also haven't dug into this super deeply, so I don't have a fantastic description.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, maybe we can do this afternoon then.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So it's 8 orders of magnitude or more, and is it on all plots or is it on just the phase plots?
Here's where I don't do that many slice plots. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can
Definitely on phase plots.
Yeah. Well, we can experiment a little bit. I think that's like a really important thing to fix. I don't know any person who's not going to want scale on their plot, really. So we'll definitely fix that. Okay, so Stephanie pointed out 2 issues that I think we're going to file sometime today. The other one was that you can't pass the data set object that's not a region into phase plots, right? But you can do it with slice plot and projection plot. And so this is another thing that we could file an issue about, because that means that our API between different plotting interfaces is not consistent. And so that's something that definitely could be fixed, I think. Okay, so this is what it would look like if you create an issue. And so we have these comments, and if you have, especially a bug that you think is in the code, giving as much detail as possible in this issue section is going to be very, very helpful to us to help you. Or if you want to create it, if you're going to fix it, you can put in as much information as you want, but documenting the bug really clearly makes it easier when we also go back to compare similar issues that arise. Like maybe you find a bug in one spot, but it's very similar to a bug found somewhere else. And then your documentation of the bug is going to be helpful into resolving future issues. So we have a summary, so a couple of sentences that describe what you're encountering. So that would be, in the example of Stephanie's, like if I have more than 8 orders of magnitude span in my data, then in the plot objects, I don't see a scale on the color bar. So that would be the summary. Then we have code for reproduction. And so what you would do then is submit 2 different sort of plot functions, one where you don't have 8 orders magnitude and one where you do, and you show the returned plots. An additional tip is that if you have an image copied into your buffer on your computer and you do a paste here, GitHub will automatically post that, upload that for you and create a link, an image link. So you don't have to save an image on your computer to be able to do it. You can just copy it straight out of a Jupyter notebook or something like that. And so then you have your code. These triple backticks here are ways that you can have multi-line code. So this is how you can submit some specific code and it'll be formatted nicely. So it's like what we expect. So I could say something like, and then I can preview what that looks like. And see, it's going to render it really nicely in Python formatting. And then the actual outcome, this is where you would paste the images. So you have your code up here of the 2 different plots, and then you would paste the 2 plots and what they look like. If there's console output, like if you're getting an error thrown when you're trying to do something, this is where you'd paste the console output. Putting in these triple backticks also makes it easier for us to then, when we're trying to reproduce the issue on our computer or something like that, or whoever is helping you to reproduce the issue, to be able to just copy out some of your output. So copying the contents as opposed to screenshotting or something is a little bit more helpful. And then version information is usually pretty helpful. For example, if you're using YT 4.0, or if you're using the master branch in the current development tip, or maybe you're using a packaged version of YT that you got off of Conda Forge, maybe 3.5 or 3.4 or something like that, then you would put these version informations of YT. And if you think like, oh, this is some weird compatibility issue between YT and another library, you would write the other library versions as well. And it is helpful usually to say how you installed YT. So all of you that walked through with us the other day have from source builds of YT 4.0. So you can say I built YT from source with pip. Okay, so that's what we would do if we wanted to do that. And then you have to add a title before GitHub will let you submit it. And then you could submit the issue. I'm not gonna, it says this is similar to 4 existing issues. Not really sure why. GitHub has added this like cool new thing that you can apparently compare to other issues. I don't know how this is similar to anything. I only have my cool function of cats. So apparently maybe other people like cats, who knows? Yeah, so that's what that would look like. Okay, so that's submitting an issue. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to submitting a pull request?
I think you're doing great, Madikin.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so please feel free to stop me if I'm like going too fast or if there's anything confusing that I'm saying. You know, like this is all just stream of consciousness out of my head, so I'm sure I'm missing some things. Okay, so now
it's all making good sense here, Madikin.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go and fix that problem we saw with the getting involved with all these different communication channels, right? So let's see here. So we know, for example, that there is a YT IRC channel, but if you go to that, you're probably not going to get a response from YT. So we know that this is probably something that should be deleted. And we also want to change from 5 main communication channels to 3, because then we're going to delete the IRC one and we have Slack and then these 2 different mailing lists, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is where we're going to go. I know that this is in the doc developing.html, developing.rst file. So I'm going to go to that in the documentation source and I'm going to try and fix it. Okay. So I'm on the 4.0 branch. So actually I'm going to create a new branch now. So for those of you that are not familiar with Git, all of the YT source is tracked with the version control system Git. I will link to a Git tutorial for those of you that, if you're interested in contributing, you can follow this tutorial to kind of get the basics of Git down. I'm going to just jump straight into some Git commands, but if this is something that you are interested in and you don't know Git very well, please talk to me and I'd be happy to work with you to get through that. Okay, so I'm going to make a new branch. This one I'm going to probably say, actually, you know what we could do? I could create an issue for the developing docs if we wanted. Well, I won't do that, but you could create if you do see an issue that you want to fix, you can submit and file an issue and submit the fix and link them together right after each other. I'm not going to do that because this is a pretty small fix. So I'm going to do git checkout -b. So that means I'm going to check out a new branch and I'm going to call it, I don't know. Okay, so now I made a new branch off of the YT 4.0 branch. I didn't update. You can update. I know that, for example, there's a new change from Mike's pull request that got merged. Okay, so now I'm going to go to developing, or to source, I think, right? Oh, nice. Yes, source. And then developing. And then I'm going to go to developing. Oh, so developing.rc is in the contributing file. That's 3 directories up from here. So I'll do that. Okay, so .rst is a special file format for restructured text. This is what Sphinx is going to use, and Sphinx is what we're using to build our documentation. It's the It's pretty common in open source packages to use Sphinx for documentation, but Sphinx is looking for this special type of file called restructured text file. And so it has a bunch of formatting options that we can like link between different documentation and things like that. I can also link to what Sphinx is if any of you want to dive into that, but I don't want to go too deep into Sphinx right now. Okay, so we have our communication channels. Here's what the source looks like of that page. So we know, okay, I want to change this to 3 main communication channels for YT, and we want to delete this IRC channel because also it says IRC is the first stop for conversation, and I don't know if that's accurate anymore. Maybe not, no. So don't go to IRC first, everybody. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go like that. Now we have our 3 main communication channels, and I can see we have our Slack, and we have YT users and YT dev, and that looks good to me. So I'm just going to stop there. And okay, so now I can say get status. And I see that, okay, document has been modified. It's the contributing file. I can say git diff, and I can see what's been changed. So it's doing a line by line difference, but really it's because just this one word changed. So I changed there's 5 main communication channels to there's 3, and I deleted all these lines about IRC. So then I can commit. So I'm going to say git commit, and I'm going to do it with a message. That's what this -m is. And I'm going to say git commit -m. I'm going to say update communication channels do not include IRC. Or maybe I could just say remove IRC from communication channels. That's a little bit clearer. Okay, then I'm going to push enter. Oh, I didn't add. Great. So this is good. So actually I have to add the file. So basically I'm saying this is the file that I want to save with this commit message. So I'm going to say git add. Now I can say git status and make sure it's added. And I can see this is a change to be committed. That means this is a change that I'm putting in an area that I want to save. And so it's kind of nice to do that. And then I'm going to just go up and do the same commit message from before. Okay, now I can say git status. Okay, great. The working tree is clean. That means everything has been saved. There's no changes that are not saved in my Git history. So now what I'm going to do is, so I've just changed the source code on my local computer, but my GitHub was not going to reflect this yet because I haven't pushed the changes up to GitHub yet. So we can look at my profile, my YT source directory, and we can look. And first of all, I made a new branch. So I have a bunch of branches, and I should probably clean some of these out. But I just made this communications channel branch, and that's not even on here. So like I can't even look at the commit that I just made because I don't even have that branch to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this change up to my GitHub profile. So I'm going to say git push, and then origin is my GitHub space, and then I'm going to say comm channels. And I actually should maybe show you all how to fork. Do all of you know what I'll show a fork. I'll just go and do that. Okay, so I'm going to push up to my profile origin from the branch comm channels, and I'm going to create a new branch probably. Okay, and so Git is responding a few things to me, and it says, okay, I've created, I've made a new branch comm channels on your profile on GitHub. So I can look at that now. And then now GitHub is updated. It says, oh, you've made this new comm channels branch. There's also a command line feature called Hub. I'm not going to show that right now, but you can actually like create a pull request from the command line if you want to. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you this way. So, okay, I've made this new branch comm channels, and I can now say compare and pull request. Oh, I should update my remote master. Okay, I don't know why GitHub's taking a little bit to do this, but okay, well, that's cool. Let's try and redo this. Well, maybe I can't show you a pull request. There we go. Okay, so now I can see, and I'm going to change the base master to 4.0 because I made a branch off of the 4.0 branch, right? And I'm going to say, so when you create a pull request, GitHub tries to create a title for the pull request automatically based on what it sees your changes are. For me, it's choosing my commit message. And then again, just like with the issue, we have a template with pull requests that say a lot of, that kind of gives you some direction about what we look for in a pull request. So it links, for example, to the developing documentation that I linked in Slack. It also is asking for like a general summary if you can do it and some things about that. So I'm going to update the summary. I like to delete these just because so I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to say that Mike pointed this out, so I'm going to tag him in the issue. So you can tag somebody by adding them. So that way, if you worked on it with somebody, you can tag them in the issue or the pull request or something like that. So I'm going to say, we notice that our communication channels said that yAC is the first. Okay, and then there's this PR checklist. So again, this is like what you saw in Mike's. So this is going to be rendered as checkboxes. And again, you know, like you've seen a lot of stuff today with contributing. You can ask any of these questions. You can ask like, how can I do this again in the Slack channel that you're already in? And we're happy to come back and help you. Like we want to hear your contributions. We want to get feedback from you on YT and all of that. So please consider contributing back to YT. Okay, so this is my PR summary. I can preview it and I can say, oh, okay, here, we've noticed that our communication channel said that yAC is the first step and this is good. Keep this checkbox, allow edits from maintainers. That means that like, a maintainer of the project like Matt or me or Mike or somebody else can come and they can help add to your pull request if you need to. So I'm going to create this. Okay, great. And so now this looks just like what we were looking at before with Mike's pull request. So I have this pull, I have this thing, and I have this pull request checklist. None of these really, again, apply to mine because this is another documentation fix, so I don't really have to worry about those. And then there's some pending checks again. And I can verify that the changes that I just did on my command line are different. Are the same or that are not different from what I did on my local machine. And so that they're the same reflected. So I can see that, oh, okay, my old version, I definitely changed 5 to 3, and I deleted this whole line about yAC. So that's cool. Let's go back and look at this and look, oh, I have a new reviewer and it's an approving review. So there's no, let's see what happened. Looks great. Okay, so no pedantic updates like mine with the height. Thank you, Mike. That was very kind of you.
Sorry, no emojis either.
Oh, no emojis. Oh, no. You could have left a dog emoji for me. That would have been perfect. It's okay. I will emoji yours with a rocket ship. That's what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, now mine is good to go. In general, I don't merge pull requests that I submit myself. So another maintainer needs to go through and kind of merge this. But now together, we've all just done a pull request together, and we've made a change to the YT source code, and now all future people are going to see this. Well, once YT 4.0 is our main development branch, because our docs right now are for 3.6. But anyway, okay. Also, the last thing I wanted to show is creating a fork. So you all cloned YT from its main repo up here. So you got this URL, or maybe the HTTPS, I can't remember, but you cloned with this from the YT project. If you want to start developing with YT, what you need to do is create a fork of the project. So you're going to click this fork button. I think I can still do that because I don't have forks in some of my other spaces. So what you're going to do is so it says, oh, I've already forked this, but you're going to want to fork it under your user profile. And then, so I'm part of a couple of other development groups, so I could fork YT onto one of these. I'm not going to, but so you're going to fork YT, and then after you do that, under your user profile, so instead of it being under the group YT project /YT, you will have one under, what did I just do? You will have, so my name is Munkum, so then you will have your own copy of YT. And it will differ from the upstream project over time because the upstream, like the YT project, is getting updated by people all the time. So we can see that my version of master on my local, on my GitHub clone, on my fork, is 145 commits behind whatever YT project is. So it's 145 save points basically behind YT project. So I'll show you how to update that now. So if I go back to, so now I'm going to check out the master branch. Sorry, my cat is eating something. Hold on. Okay. So I'm gonna check out master. So I'm gonna go, now I'm going to a branch that already exists. I don't have to use this -B flag that I used when I went to comm channels. So I'm gonna go check out master. And it's saying your branch is ahead of origin master. So again, origin, I said, is my user profile version of YT on my profile. And I can check that by saying git remote -v, and I can see whose I have. So I have Matt because we collaborate on some stuff. Upstream is the YT projects, and then origin is mine under Munkum. Okay, so I can see.
It's so funny. I always type git remove as well, and you had just corrected that.
Oh, you do?
I always do. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'm glad that I'm not alone. This is great. So yeah. So we say git remote -v, and I can see, okay, there's origin and upstream. So I know origin is my user profile, and I'm saying my local, so when it's saying your branch, it's meaning the branch on your local machine is ahead of origin master by 38 commits. That means there's 38 save points on my local machine that are not reflected up here on this one. So if I wanted to update that, I can say git push origin master. So I'm pushing to origin to my remote GitHub repository Munkum YT, and I'm going to push to the master branch. Oh. Did I have something in here? Oh, that's because, okay. So actually, I don't know how to, okay, ignore this for a second. I have two different working copies of YT because I build with 4.0 and master, and then I don't have to deal with updating the source as much. Anyway, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say git push origin. Or actually, let's see what this one looks like. Okay, so my branch is ahead of origin master by 133 commits, which is, I think, only one commit behind. Oh, no, it's a couple, but that's okay. We'll see. So we'll say git push origin master. Okay, so now we should see GitHub update. And now it's saying this branch is 12 commits behind YT project / master. And that's because all I did was push what was on my local machine up to GitHub. If instead I want to get what's upstream from the YT project, I have to first pull from upstream, bring it to my local machine, and then push to my copy on GitHub. So like you're taking from the YT project, bringing it down to your local machine, and then you're using your local machine to update your copy of YT on GitHub. So I'm gonna then push to my Munkum one. So I'm gonna say git pull upstream master. So now I'm pulling all the changes that exist in the YT project, YT source, and I'm gonna say git pull upstream to my master branch. Okay, a bunch of things have changed. This is, you know, I can kind of find out like what has changed. People have updated some docs, some front ends have been updated, things like that. Okay, so now I can say git status. And it says your branch is ahead of origin master by 12 commits. And that's actually exactly the number of commits that I'm behind on my profile right now. So now I'm gonna update my, again, user profile version of Git on GitHub, of the YT Git repo on GitHub. So I'm gonna say git push origin master. So again, I use upstream is what I'm calling the YT project's copy of YT, and origin is the Munkum copy of YT. So now I'm pushing up to that. So I pulled the changes from upstream and I'm pushing them now to origin. And if I refresh, ta-da, now it's even. So now I have the exact version of master. My master branch on my user profile on GitHub matches the master branch that exists on the YT project in upstream. So if you decide to start developing with YT, you can update your copy. This is also how you would update your source code. If you, like right now, you all have a from source build of YT 4.0. If you see a change, maybe somebody fixes a bug that you need fixed to do some of your analysis, and you see it go into the 4.0 branch, you can update your 4.0 branch to do that. So to reflect those changes. So if I go back to my YT repo, and then I can check out, this is the 4.0 branch. So let's say, like I now know Mike's change, his documentation change was just merged to the YT 4.0 branch. And so like maybe I want that on my local machine. And I also, because I'm going to be developing, and this documentation is very important for me to have on my local machine to do my development. So I'm going to say git pull upstream, and then we're going to say YT 4.0. So now I'm pulling the branch YT 4.0 from the YT project, and I'm updating my local copy. Okay, one file was changed, and it is the analyzing /object. So that means Mike's change is now on my local machine, and I can see it. And then I can update my working copy on GitHub the same way. In general, I would not commit directly to the master branch or the YT 4.0 branch if I was gonna be like making some bug fixes or something like that. It's always best to make a new branch. That way, if somebody else helps you and like submits a fix to one of those development branches, you don't have to try to resolve the conflict of those branches to get their changes on your copy. Does that make sense?
I would also note, don't make upstream your default.
Yes. Yeah, so
I had that problem once.
Actually, this is a really good point. I should say, okay, thank you, Mike. You pointed out one more thing that I want to do. So I'm going to go, okay. Okay, so if I clone my fork of YT, this is my one under the Munkum username, I can get this URL and I can say git clone. And now I'm going to clone it onto my computer. This is what you all did to get the yT source code 2 days ago. So it's going to take a little bit. But there's only one default of remote that's added when you do a clone like this. And so I should show you how to add upstream as a remote, actually. So when you clone, the thing that the directory that you clone with is what is set to your default. So actually right now your default is set to upstream, or to what is upstream. It's going to be called origin because that's like Git's naming convention. But the address that it's set to is where the yT project is, the yT project's copy of Git. Sorry, this is taking a little bit, everybody.
No problem. I have a question maybe while it's going on, if that's okay, Madigan. Okay.
Yeah, great.
All right, so maybe you've already covered this, and I feel like I get this explained to me, but I often forget. Okay, so I have my branch, and I've made a bunch of edits to whatever, front end Daedalus. I've created all these files, I've done all this stuff.
Yep.
The docs get updated.
Yeah.
On the master or whatever, and I want that in my branch, but I don't want, to go back to the old Daedalus front end files. Can I still get just the docs changes, but keep my most recent changes?
Yep. Yes, you can.
Okay.
So when you're using Git to do version control, all of the changes you've made to the Daedalus front end, if that's what you're doing, are more recent changes to those files, those Daedalus files, right? And then if there's a parallel branch that's doing the documentation for that front end, right? And that's what you're talking about. There's somebody else is doing development of that. And you want to get those, what you can do is you're going to merge those into your branch, but you both have the same origin history of that front end. You both have the same, if you go far enough back in your history, you both have those same old files. So Git will know oh, your files are more recent changes to the source code of this. So I'm just going to merge all the new stuff from this one branch into yours. It's not gonna merge the exact copy of everything. It's only merging in the changes that exist on that branch. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yes, great.
Yeah. Okay, so now I've cloned the yT source code from my user profile. If I go into that, and then I can say git remote -v again. And I can see it only has origin and it's only set to where among my user profile /yt. So for all of you, actually, what yT is going to do is it's going to be set at yT project /yt rather than that. So what you're going to want to do, and I'm going to show you kind of the commands series, and I will put them in the Slack when I'm done, so you can copy them to yours. So you have to make a fork in order for this to work, but you're going to say git remote rm, and you're going to say origin. This means I'm removing the remote origin. That's not what I want to have origin be anymore. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say git remote add, and I'm going to add upstream first. And then I'm going to copy the URL from the yT project /yt here. So I'm git remote add upstream, and then I want to add this URL upstream. And then I'm going to say git remote add origin, and I'm going to add my user profile version. So for me, I had originally cloned with the right user profile version, but this is what all of you are going to want to do to be able to have upstream and origin with your user profile on GitHub. if you do that. Okay, and then I'm going to say get remote add origin, and origin is my user profile version of YT. So I'm going to do that. Now I can check that both have been added properly. So I'm going to say get remote -v. V is verbose, so I can see the addresses again. If I just say get remote, it just lists the names of my remotes, origin and upstream, which is not actually super helpful. So -v to see where they're pointed to is more helpful in my opinion. So I can see now I have origin and upstream, which means I can do that get pull upstream master and get push origin master. And I can update YT's copy to be the same copy that exists on my user profile. Okay. Yeah, so again, if you're not gonna fork YT and you don't plan on making a GitHub profile or anything, you don't have to do these particular changes. You can just say git pull every time you want to update your copy to be the latest development version of YT. Because you have a little bit more of a simple remote arrangement. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to cover. Is there any clarifications, any questions? We've covered a lot, so if you're feeling a little overwhelmed or feeling like this is a lot of info, that's totally okay. You can always ask me again. Very, very happy to follow up with you.